Welcome back. Now it's time to hear three of the industry's largest technology providers and how they plan to support the transformation taking place in our industry. I would like to invite to the stage Yannick Hoyles, Director Distribution at IATA, to moderate the session. Yannick, please, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Can we have a bit of round of applause, please? Come on. Hey, you got one more session to go. You know what, so gentlemen, just like, wait, can you make it a little bit more enthusiastic, please? Come on, come on. Way! Here we go, here we go, here we go. Now, you know, another feature of this panel is, look, we have, I always thought you were being shy, Temur. Well, welcome, Temur Gadazipur from Lufthansa Group. Please, a warm round of applause for Temur. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've got 49 minutes. We haven't got anything to crack. No, there's no problem. We're here to have a really good conversation, a really nice conversation, a little bit in the style we had yesterday morning and Chanel had with some of the airline chief commercials today. Now, you might see an anomaly on this panel. Does anyone see an anomaly on this panel?
You?
I can't quite hear, but it may be that Temur's on the panel. Is that it? Okay. I thought you were going to say it's Jim Davidson sat between two GDSs. All right? So it's Temur. So it's an important point. Temur Gadazipur is here with his industry hat. Temur is the chair of the Distribution Advisory Council. IATA has 8 advisory councils that provide advice to IATA's Board of Governors. And one of those is distribution, and Temur is the chair. Hence, he's here because we thought it'd be really great, and the 3 panelists were fully supportive of this, just to have someone there to counterbalance, to poke. Let's just see how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. Before I kick off, I just want to read to you what I suggested to my panelists as the goals of this session. Yeah, goals of the session. And it's okay, I've not changed what I wrote, what I sent to you, right? It's still on the same lines. It's ask some of those questions that everyone has on their mind, but without going beyond any red lines. Get concrete visibility of deployment roadmaps. Convey the message that all 3 of you are on board and share the same ambition as the airlines in this context. This context being, not to preserve, but this journey to retailing. And also, get airlines or help airlines who are still hesitant to want to embark on this journey. That's what this is about. So I just want to start with a couple of general questions just to relax and it's not even tense, this pleasant atmosphere. So I'm going to start with you, Charlie. What are your clients telling you? So these last 18 months, airlines have been sort of sharing some of the circumstances. What are your clients telling you today?
So, and I think it was, it came to the fore at this event, but we've got clients at different points in their retailing journey. It's fair to say that the last 18 months, the conversations have been more about what can you do for me now, but it is, we're seeing others accelerate. There seems to be a much greater willingness in this low demand period to really pursue experimentation distribution, and offer optimization. So we're seeing some really, really important things coming out of here that are validating our belief that the focus on retail distribution fulfillment is the right one.
That's great. That's pretty consistent with what we've been hearing as well from, I guess, the same people, airlines,
yeah.
And maybe some other players as well. Decius, you think something completely different?
No, very much on the same trend. And we heard here the chief commercial officers. I think everyone believes there is an opportunity to rebuild the industry, rebuild it better. So we're looking into trends that existed already before, such as digitalization of the airlines. So everyone is embarking heavily because they feel that more than a necessity is an element of survival. So that's very much the mindset. And then what is going to be the future? And the future involves the passenger journeys, the customer journeys. So I think that very much what we heard here, and everyone is investing.
That's great. That's really, really good news. Now, I just want to ask you one question about relationships between airlines and GDSs. I think we joke about the atmosphere, but it's fair to say that there has been a lot of tension between airlines and GDSs. So for both of you, for Sabre and Amadeus, do you see that changing going forward? We're seeing massive disruption going forward. So do you also see a disruption in these relationships that are really important?
Yeah,
Decius.
I think maybe let's get back and understand what are the tensions that existed between the GDSs and the airlines. No, so we have a fundamental shift of strategy from the traditional airlines. We have the competition of low-cost carriers. And thus, I think two elements change. Number one, what is the relationship that airlines would like to have with travel agencies? So typically, the travel agency that is away, it is of high value. The travel agency that is on your home market, airlines are challenging. What is the value add? So I think that is the first point of tension. And the second, when you're reformulating your offer, there is a full unbundle. So we are saying about unbundling the full set of services, and the channel of where the customer is being serviced is even part of that unbundling. So all of a sudden, GDSs and travel agencies are part of the choice that the customer makes on the moment that they're going to be served. So I think that's and then if we come from the history, no, we need to adjust to those 2 points. So I will say, was there conflict? Most surely there was conflict. I think that based on evidence, the number of new deals, very different strategies from very different players and airlines that are out there, I think it shows that each airline is following their own strategy, and they're finding on us, the partner, to debate how they want to implement things, and we'll support those strategies.
So what I'm hearing, Decius, is that you're saying because I guess the market dynamics are changing, the actual value proposition and the positioning of the GDS as a value proposition, whether it's GDS or aggregator, GDS aggregator, is changing, and that kind of drives a new way of working together.
Yes, I think some of the fundamentals remain the same, which is an airline decides to outsource to a provider the relationship with, in the case of Amadeus, 50,000 travel agencies in the planet, many, many APIs, 350,000 users. So it's like that is a network that there is access to. There's technology behind that connects to all of that network. And then, yes, there are a lot of debates on saying, where can you add value? So I think that's where the conversation starts. GDS has been a bundle, but I think there are many other ways that we can support, and we're there to discuss.
So, Charlie, I think, again, there's been a lot of tension. There's, we hear in the media about some airlines, some deals taking time or not happening, and that applies to other GDSs as well. So do you see this relationship, this tension, uneasing in a similar way? What's the saber view of all this?
Yeah, I think that I would just add, I think maybe a point of root cause of tension. And one of the, I believe the root causes has been that it's been difficult for GDSs to display product all the time in the way that perhaps an airline can do on airline.com in the direct channel. And that, I think, has been a source of frustration. What is encouraging, though, is, firstly speaking for Sabre, we're leaning into both on the product side as well as the commercial model side, trying to address that. So that is something which, richer shopping, more automation, greater display capabilities that will allow for the airline to take better control in how display may occur. So that's number one. I think, though, that the arrival of NDC, with airlines leading into NDC, that is, NDC distribution is going to be extremely important in providing a complete, total view of distribution. So I think that we're going to, those two things give us encouragement that moving forward, we are going to see perhaps a lessening if there has been tension historically.
That's great news. So you see changes in products and commercials in light of this new change. So let me zoom into you, Jim. Jim. It's a bit like NDC now. Who doesn't know Jim Davidson? There you go. Now, there's been a big change, though, Jim.
Yes.
You're here in between two GDSs. You've always been the small guy, the challenger. Who are you now?
Well, I can, I'm getting on in years, so I do have a reminder. So I am Excelia.
Okay.
So, and I have hats for you guys too. You can choose to wear them. So yeah. So this is my first public appearance, and not for almost 3 years. Not because of COVID, because of a lot of other things that we went into. But I promised the marketing team that I would behave, and I won't talk about tension between technology and commercials. But what I will say is the Excelia really, and part of these arrows is really talking about the two companies merging together, and notice there's no overlap. The beauty about the merger between Farelogix and Excelia, Farelogix focused heavily on the offer order. Excelia focused very heavily on the financial aspects and settlement. So we really do believe that, as Charlie said, NDC is really transmitting a lot of more than just an API. It's transmitting how the airlines want to do business with their customers, and you have to look end to end. So it's a privilege to be here with my Excelia hat on. It's a great company. I got to meet my Madrid team yesterday for the first time in 14 months. I still haven't met the owners of the Vista group that actually bought us in person. So it's really great to be here. And look, things are much different in terms of how we're working with both the GDSs. But yeah, it's nice to be at the big boy table.
That's great, Jim. No, it's nice to see you back. I'm just going to bring Temur in actually a little bit earlier than planned, and then I'll take a couple of questions from the floor. Temur, we just heard that there's massive changes taking place in the area of product, in the area of commercials, particularly because of the new market dynamics. So with your industry hat, what do you see? Can you describe from an airline industry point of view, what kind of dynamics changing do you see?
Yeah, sure, Yannick. And I think, apart from NDC, I think what we have seen or where we are in is a kind of a complete transformation process for the whole airline retailing journey. The whole technology is changing, the commercials is changing, the players are partly changing. We see lots of changes, accelerated also, I think, now in the COVID times. And the question is really, I think, apart from NDC, where we all had our history and where we have seen now more progress, how is this now translating into every value block of this journey? Because we will see these changes in payment, we will see these changes in the offer and order processes. Most likely something will also happen earlier in the funnel in the search consideration and placement topic. So we will see a lot of changes, and we have had that experience with NDC now over the last 5 or 6 years, and I think IATA played an important role setting standards, and it took time for the industry to adjust. But my question would be now going back to the tech providers. Let's focus now on NDC. How do you see now that scaling of NDC, not only in the leisure side, which we have, I think, tremendously seen now in the last 12, 18 months, but also on the corporate side? And my question would be back to the tech providers. When do you think that for this remaining important part of NDC in the B2B side will be at a point that we can say we can scale it? Because we have now new contracts, but we're not yet in that implementation phase where we should be. And maybe that question goes to all three of you.
Okay,
where we are there,
Yeah, cool. So let's answer Temur's question, because I asked him a question, but he's putting a question back to the panel. No worries. Yeah. We'll take a couple of questions in a sec, but first I like Sabre and Amadeus to answer that, and then I'll zoom into you, Jim, just to bring into what you have to offer. So Charlie, when's business travel going to be live? Because now 90% of leisure's kind of there.
Yeah, so that's right. I think that the pacing items on scale are two things. One is capabilities. So are the back-end flows in place to actually support? But then there's also the efficacy of those capabilities. So that is something which certainly our experience, we're heavily involved, heavily working on those two areas. I think then what it is go from here to scale. So we're live in 47 markets, and we've got 5 carriers in various states of production, and we're in discussions with 25 airlines. So there's no doubt that the need to scale is there. I think that we're ready for it. I think that the mindset is there, and certainly as we look forward, the resourcing that we're putting into it should allow us to scale.
Do you think, Charlie, that in 2022 will be the year that Sabre will offer full capabilities in terms of full scalability, business as well as leisure?
Based on the roadmaps that we have currently, I believe that we will have the capabilities that are going to be required for all the segments.
Another question I got for you, Charlie, on that. Is there a date, do you know, when North America will be ready from an aggregator point of view to consume NDC content from all the players, whether it be US carriers or international carriers?
I don't have a date for that, no.
Okay. Do you reckon it'll be 2022? Or also maybe late 2021?
2021 would be a little bit ambitious, I think, but certainly I think that we're looking forward to the next 12 months as really pivotal changes in NDC capabilities.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Decius, business travel in particular.
Okay, but I have to disagree a little bit with the leisure being fully resolved. I think there are challenges. I think that we are on the simple ONDs on leisure. I think as we scale, there will be issues around the performance. There will be issues around how we're going to deal with all of the not leading to a booking sort of traffic. So you have zillions of meta searches and tech giants and so on and so forth. So how we're going to solve for that? So I think that is a question on scaling. Going to business travel, I think business travel, similar to premium leisure and so on and so forth, it is a way of buying that the customer is expecting the full integration. Now it is expecting the servicing, is expecting integration to third parties, it is expecting the indirect channel to be able to fully accommodate all of the requests. So it is like we have been working quite a bit. We're going to be ready by the end of the year. A major milestone that we needed to do was to upgrade all of our front offices. So essentially is now we have a cloud-based, server-based front office all over the planet. So this means that we're going to have NDC available everywhere. So
does that mean this is by the end of this year, all your 50,000 travel agents will have access to NDC content for all those airlines that go through Amadeus as an aggregator?
Correct.
Does that mean, Decius, that whether their airline IT is Amadeus Altea or some other kind of IT, could be a Farelogix, could even be a Sabre API, that's also part of that scope?
It doesn't matter. As an aggregator, we have implementations with Amadeus layer of NDC. We have integration with Farelogix NDC, and Sabre will be exactly the same. So we...
He's trying to disrupt you, Decius. He's trying to disrupt you, you see. Yep. So I'm going to move on to Jim now. He's got my attention, right? See, he's managed to stir things, and I'll come back to you, Decius. But Jim, so where do you fit in this picture, apart from wearing a really nice cap with a great logo?
So I think there's look, I think and Decius is right, and I think for scale on corporate, it's going to require both of these guys on each side, because look, that's both where airlines and travel agencies and corporations want to source their travel. So when that happens, and it is happening, but when that happens, then we're going to see scale. I think as a tech provider who's been doing this for years, there's also technical scaling, because things are changing. So we've gone through iterations of people wanting to do continuous pricing. Well, as you can imagine, continuous pricing will basically melt a traditional pricing engine. So you have to look at the volumes. We just did a very big deal with AWS, similar to a lot of these guys pick different partners. But that allows us a little bit more technical scaling. And so I think that is the real key. So there's two pieces. One is when the GDSs take what I've always historically called NDC pass-through. That's when we're going to get the corporates. I do think we still have a challenge with what I'll say NDC visualization. I stole that from my friend Graham Wareham. That we still are going to have to deal with that, not the last mile, the last inch of how we display this, whether it's on a corporate booking tool or an agent's desktop, to give both the ability to compare, which I know these guys like, but also the ability to get your message and your brand and your offer across. So I don't think we're done yet by any means, but I'll make the last comment is that NDC is more than an API now. It is really transformed into what I call a gateway technology, is that many things will start to hang off that. And not only things that are done by Excelia, but if you have an NDC API as an airline, you will probably hang a lot of different applications off of that. And some will be yours, some will be somebody else's. And I think that's the big challenge that we're going to see.
So what you're talking about, Jim, is this modular architecture. Whereas today it's one big box. Yeah. I just want to go to Tamil real quick. Did you get the answer to your question?
Yes, I think the way is shown, but of course we need to hear timelines when exactly things are now ready for a quite complicated value chain where you have OBEs, GDS, TMCs, the airline, and of course the end customer, the corporate, because it will probably require more individual blueprint type of solutions, because we have to make it connect to each of these corporates, and the big ones, they have their specific requirements. So I think this is really the tricky part, is the detail then, and I think we need to find a way to find blueprints and scale things via blueprints. Otherwise, when you mentioned all those intermediaries, but also all the corporates, we cannot find one solution for each of them in the technological solution part. So this has to be really blueprinting. And I think that would be an important element now in the way forward, working together on this.
Exactly.
And I think that's the big difference also to a couple of years ago. I think we are very much in the same boat now. And this is, I think, a great progress for the industry. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to take a couple of questions. Questions. We have one question at the back. Can't see. Is that you, Malaki? Okay. You see, even with the mask from afar, I can see. Okay, we'll take one more question now from Malaki before we go back to my questions.
Hello, Malaki Faulkner from Fathom. A question, we talked a lot about consistency of the product and the offer for the customer across all touch points and channels. So a question for the panel is, how many of your airlines customers are using NDC on their direct channel for their .com, etc.? And if the answer is not 100%, why not?
Okay, let's start with Decius.
Okay, so we have 150 airlines in our IATA suite. Out of those, we have 35 that are using our merchandising and NDC product. So many of them are not using it simply because they have not launched their NDC programs, and they're still discussing if it is something that is going to be viable and wanted to be done for them. But based on our technology, every time that we do it is omni-channel. So it is the same technology that is going to power the direct and the indirect, so that is available baseline.
Charlie,
yeah. So we've got, so on the NDC IT front, on the airline IT front, we've got 18 carriers that we are in discussions with. One is in production right now. It is very much like on the distribution front, it's absolutely the front of the agenda. So I think that we're going to see a lot of kind of velocity pick up over the coming months.
Jim, what's your view on that?
Yeah, so we have one in production and one soon to go in production. And again, I agree with Decius. It's the same technology stack. You're basically directing a pipe to your website versus a pipe to your external API. The challenge is, I think, goes back to the scaling question. You know, it really takes NDC to be proven at scale. And the gentleman at the end, he and I are still friends, but I will tell you, he did a lot of that heavy lifting with us. So many of you who are just now starting your NDC journey don't have to go through the same mistakes of that. And I think that, I don't underestimate that having a partner, in this case Lufthansa, we do a significant amount of transactions with a continuous pricing, all hosted in the cloud, and there's some bumps along the way. So this is not something you're going to just do an NDC API today and then say, oh, I want to plug it into my website tomorrow.
It makes sense to think it makes sense to consider it in kind of your roadmap.
Yeah. So Malik, the answer is that yes, it's the same technology. I think it's a risk equation at this point.
Right. Let's take a second question. Okay, we've got Nikki. Nikki, yeah, you'll say who you are yourself, Nikki. Mike's coming its way on your left.
So I think Jim's right.
Just say where you're from.
Nikki Ping from FCM. That Jim's right around to get true corporate scale, we need the online booking tools. Picking up on what Decius said, if the API kind of delivers a solution that can work in both Selling Platform Connect and an airline website, does that mean the minute that an airline's live in Amadeus or Sabre, you will also have it live in Get There and Sidetrek? Because we need somebody to move the dial on the online booking tool stuff.
Yeah. That's a great question. It comes back to your point earlier, Decius, so go ahead.
So I have to speak for the customers that are ours, no? So there's like Sidetrek, as it is an Amadeus technology, yes, it will be ready. We have Concur, a partnership with them, so that is going to be ready as well.
By the end of the year?
By consuming our API, which is going to make seamless EDIFACT content and NDC content. So both.
And that would be by the end of the year with Concur.
By the end of the year, those things are going to be available together with our selling platform. So those are the ones we have agreements with.
Great. Charlie, Get There.
Yeah, so currently, so Get There is actually in prototype production now. So it's not live yet, but it's clearly it's our primary OBT, so it's extremely important. It's a high focus area. Otherwise, the NDC APIs are available. It's also through Sabre Red 360. We've got NDC available.
Jim, can you? I want to move now because Ty took. Sorry, yeah, you can't see where I am.
Keep moving around.
I know. I'm just trying to to distract you again. But no, Jim. Well, Ty talked about the whole journey, offer management, order management, all the way to settlement. You mentioned it in the introduction. Could you just explain the role you will play? Are you going to be competing with these guys? Are you going to win against these guys?
Yes and yes. I mean, but
right.
you know.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
No,
let me clarify one thing. I think we're starting, and no offense, we're starting a bad habit of calling content either Edifact content or NDC content's content. Edifact is a programming language. XML is a programming JSON. So I do think we have to really. Edifact has presented some problems in us getting content delivered or maybe displayed, but content is not necessarily tied to a particular technology. It's one of the things these guys have been addressing, but I don't like lumping everything into the fact that it's either Edifact or XML when it comes to content. Content is going to be what drives the differentiation for airlines.
Okay, tell me about the modular architecture that you guys envision going forward.
So I think I understand the question. Is one of the things that is we're learning very quickly as we start going deeper into the ancillary world is that there's a whole fulfillment and settlement capabilities, and there is a traditional way to do that, and unfortunately that traditional way was tied to simply basically a price, and we've been able to skate by and get a seat in there typically, but if you knew what was behind the scenes, frankly, from all of us, you'd go, why in the heck are you actually doing that? The answer is that's how it was designed. So the whole idea now is to really take the concept of NDC, not just being an API, not just being a direct connect, but understand when that content hits that offer, that content has got to flow through to order, it's got to flow through to making sure it's right. It's got to flow to when there's something that's not consumed or IROP, and it's got to flow through to the cash aspect of it. And I think as an industry, we've probably shortchanged ourselves focusing on NDC as a booking. That is the easiest damn process to do out there is to make a booking. The hardest process is to actually manage that through the life cycle. So I think the advantage that I was pleasantly surprised in when I came to Excelia was the level of maturity in thinking around offer and order as it relates to the settlement. So I think that's where you're going to see us really focus.
I just want to go to Timur. Maybe before I ask the Sabre and Amadeus where they are on this journey. You know, you again with your industry hat, maybe you can allude to Lufthansa Group because your colleagues presented some things today. But the value of moving all the way to order management, you know, this whole. What is your view on that, Timur?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I mentioned in the beginning. It's the whole retail journey and the whole value chain behind it. So when we talk exactly like Jim said about the whole value chain, also in the backbone, we need to think about order, we need to think about service and delivery. And I think what we have said now also this week when we're here together with the DAC, the Distribution Advisory Committee of the IATA Airlines, that we said this should be now, from now on, and we said that's the beginning of a next, let's say, era, you might even call it. We now very much focus all as a group on the whole offer and order journey. And this is something which nobody likes to do because there's a lot of moral hazard, that who moves first, and some actually burned their fingers on this topic because such a huge legacy topic from over 50 years ago, when it started with the whole system, that we need to do it together. And we want to bring together the coalition of the willing, and that means not only airlines, but also tech providers, possibly IT companies, and find a shell where we, as IATA, will have a common ground where we can exchange. Because one of the learnings of NEC was when everybody does it on its own, even if you have an NEC standard, it takes much longer. There are the conflicts. Not that this will go without conflicts, but we need to act here, I think, collectively, or we will be actually reformed by somebody else. So I think this is absolutely adamant that we do this together. And just this week, we, as IATA said, one of our key strategic goals until 2030, we threw the ball relatively far. This should be a new offer and order system that we will drive together. And of course, when we say 2030, that's a long way off. We also said we have to find joint MVPs, joint minimal viable products that we can commercialize on the way. It could be interlining, it can be ancillaries, it can be ticket with ticket less, it can be certain elements where we would agree ex ante on which would these MVPs be, and then trying to execute it together. You could still have your own individual way to do it, but we have one shell, we come together and we work that. So it's a longer journey, but we need to find, I think, a strategic way forward from a IATA perspective in cooperation with all the stakeholders, and some of the most important are sitting here.
I think Timur, actually, Peter Bootsma from Air France KLM yesterday, I think when we asked him the question about one order, he said, well, I don't want to do it really because it's another massive upheaval, but I've got to do it because that's the only way to get true customer centricity and to get all the benefits from NDC, the fulfillment of the offer. I think, Jim, you referred to that. I'm going to ask you for some questions in a couple of minutes. So if you just get ready, put your hands up, 2 questions, and my mic colleagues get the questions ready. But just to Sabre and Amadeus, journey to offer, and actually to Jim, real quick, journey to offers and orders, Decius, this whole approach. What's on your roadmap?
Okay, so I think on
Is
offer...
2030, the ambition that Timur describes, completely unreasonable?
Completely reasonable. Offer management, I think we are there. We have the dynamic pricing, we have the shopping, we have the merchandising. Obviously, we need to evolve more use cases, but on offer, we feel that we're pretty much there. On order management, we have laid the foundations. So we have a simple system in production. So if anyone would like to see it, we have it available. We can convert PNRs into orders and the other way around. So it's there and backward compatible. But I think that is going to be a bigger transformation, and it's going to have to be use case based. So I think that's what we're going to have to do. Is 2030 a reasonable time frame? Totally, we can do it.
But that would mean retrofitting still, or do you mean that there'll be some airlines with full orders only?
Look, as the business is the one that is going to lead, is like if you end up saying we have 95% done and there is 5% of obscure cases that are running on the, so be it. That's going to be the case. So it is like, I think as an ambition of saying, we're going to simplify the business, we're going to have 100%, let's go and let's do it.
Great.
Is there any technical impediment? No.
Okay, Charlie, the view from Sabre on this.
Yep. So briefly, 2030 is very doable. It's something which I think that we're down that path, we're beginning down that path. You know, it'll be interesting, the evolution from the PSS as we know it today to true offer order it's not just the tech providers that need to sort this out. You know, many people in this audience will be asking themselves and asking their colleagues, what do we gain from this and what do we have to leave behind? So this point about use cases, I think, is extremely important.
Yeah, Charlie, that's a good point. If you can, if you've got any examples of what would the 2 or 3 concrete use cases that could help?
Yeah, so on something that may have to be left behind, we look today at so much of the servicing that goes into some forms of interline partnerships. That may be something that we've got to explore more deeply. So it will be replaced by something else, but it's not necessarily going to be as we know it today. So there's a lot of kind of creation, co-creation, reimagination, I think, that it has to happen.
Thanks, Charlie. Jim, you must be, God, the speed at which this is going now.
2030, I just did the math, and yeah, that's not going to work, Tamara. We got to go quicker.
Well, there you go.
You know, look, part of me wants to say, you know, look, between the 3 of us, we spend billions of dollars a year in technology, and we're sitting here saying, yeah, we're going to do something in 9 years. I mean, look, and I think to Decius' point, we got to start. And I remember, and I'm going to share a little of our fun stories way back before your time even, when we sat down with Lufthansa and they said, look, we want to do differentiated content. And we had a day meeting and the list was this long and it was the coolest stuff. And you know what we did? We did the only thing that we could do, supplemental oxygen. That was it. That was the differentiation of content. And because the challenge was we didn't have this party here going into how do we, using your system, how do we actually give Lufthansa that ability to do what they want to do and have it flow through the system quite nicely? We didn't communicate about that. We lost 8 or 9 years. We don't have to do 9 years on this. We just have to sit down and say, look, I agree with use cases. I love use cases, but we all have to be at the table.
Yes.
So, Jim,
You don't have to be at the Lufthansa table, but we can be at the
so Jim, how many years for you could it be before, if
Can't
5
be more
years?
than 5.
Okay, 5 years, guys. All right, questions. Okay, we have a question here. Say who you are, Matt.
This is Matt from Data Art. And so one of the challenges that you guys face is NDC is great from a data model perspective, but it's really the front-end data model. And when I say front-end, it's the thing that's exposed. There are a whole lot of underlying data models that go to governments and regulatory bodies and a bunch of other things that are holding back the evolution. How do you work together? The gentleman from Fleur in one of the earlier ones said, hey, we wanted to do all this modern stuff, but we can't because the government's going, why don't I have a fare class and a booking code? Why is the government asking for a fare class and a booking code? And how do you collectively, as both tech providers and airlines, work together to get the government to move at the speed of your
Thanks,
technology?
Matt. Temur, do you want to have a go at that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, I think. And that's also one of the questions we tackled this week. The question of how can also IATA, now let's take IATA where we speak for, now take a role here. And we clearly said the regulatory aspect is a very important one. Fair filing in certain countries. We know other topics where there's still a lot of limitations from the government side. Nevertheless, that is something we have to tackle, and we find here also ways, and we want to probably accelerate also our efforts that we have done so far. But there's a lot of things we can do also already now. And I think what we have to find is a common format, a common shell where we act together. Because if we do that, a lot can be gained already now. It's not something where we have to wait that every government is finally approving a modern way of fare filing. Yeah, so there will always be laggards. One big important topic for us as IATA is, of course, how can we also pull the small airlines along? It's not just that the big ones are moving very quickly and fast, but we want to do the industry exercise. That's why I'm saying this timeline is one that is set from an industry perspective. It's probably a bit longer, and I hope also, like Jim, that we be quicker. But the key thing is, I think, when we want to be quick, to have really first use cases out there. And interlining, I think, is a great example. The industry is moving ahead anyway. So what things are happening, with the Kiwis and the others of the world, and I'm happy that they make the money on these kind of virtual interlining topics, but it's not in the end helping in every aspect, in every IREC case, a customer. So we need to find these kind of use cases and start with that first and get that as an industry really forward. So I think that's the key point here.
Temur, I just want to move on to Matt's question, so can build on it and ask these panelists, maybe just one or two of the answer. Do you see the end of booking classes, fare filing on this horizon timeline we're talking about? Decius?
I think fare filing easier because as we are discussing about offer management and what we're going to do is it really depends on the airlines finding interline agreements and new agreements. So that I see. Government requirements, it's I think that is something that will unite as an industry and we'll talk to governments. But at the end of the day, they are driven by other motives than just the simplification of travel to customers. So
that could be an area where the industry, as IATA, the whole advocacy component, could play a role. The second question, please. Where do we have the second question, or do we have the second question? If not, I'll just move on. I don't have a second question. A quick one on 21.3. There's this new convergence release that was actually released a few weeks ago now, which is quite important because the last one was in 2017. So what do you think of that? Is this something that's definitely on your roadmap? And what's your view on rescinding older versions of Schema to try and help accelerate for the benefit of the industry and the customer? So Charlie, short answers because we got not much time.
Sure. Yeah. So we fully support the notion of 21.3. At the last 18 months, working on 17.2 to try to do enhancements was not easy. So there will be at some point that we will stop doing enhancements on 17.2, and we hope that the industry fully embraces 21.3.
Great, Jim.
Two things. It was a bit buggy. It's cleaned up some.
Perfect, yeah.
But yeah, it's literally everybody. The airlines we're getting a lot of pressure from airlines to make that transition. It does have a bit of a long tail, but yeah, it's one of the top priorities at Excelia.
Yes,
we will converge.
Yeah.
Cool. Temur made a point about all these other airlines embarking on this journey, and one of the things that we shared is that the advice we got from our advisory council was now the leaderboard's done its job. And now we're moving on to kind of embracing all the IATA carriers who fall in the scope of airline retailing, which is probably 150, 200 airlines or so. Do you not fear that there's a risk of bottleneck here in terms of ability to help these airlines embark on their journey? Jim, what's your view here?
Yeah,
with Fairlogics, how many airlines do you have with Fairlogics?
22.
Right. Yeah,
22.
okay.
24,
so how much? So yeah, what do you think about this?
So are you talking about the conversion to 21.3?
No, sorry, Jim. I'm just talking about the move, this journey to retailing NDC.
There's always going to be some little bottleneck. Two quick points in. I have never seen an airline go tremendously fast on this. That's not all the airline's fault, by the way. And secondly, we need to standardize a little bit better, even within schemas, to give people an opportunity to come on board faster. Our experience was we tried to sit down with an airline and do the laundry list out of the box. That didn't serve us or the airline well. The airline has to mature into NDC, so they need to get up fast, quickly, and you'll hear some more stuff about that later on. But yeah, I don't think there'll be a bottleneck because I think we'll make it easier for more people to get online faster.
Okay, just talking about bottlenecks and competition, there's all these small aggregators we've got maybe 40 or 50 in our registry. And this is great news for the industry because what we've always said is standards, more competition, modern technology. What do you think the chances are of these smaller players, these challengers have coming into this industry? Decius, what's your view on that? Because, I mean, they've had a window of opportunity because since, I think it was late 2017, you guys announced that all of you were all in. But now, you're getting ready, so...
Yeah. I would say, look, from all of the aggregators, I think 26 are level 4 certified. So let's say, I think that's the leading pack. Okay. I think that everyone has quite a different strategy. So I think that's, as it is a nascent market and everyone has a different business strategy, it's going to be interesting to see what is going to be the winning model. I think, as Peter Bootsma said on the panel, he said that there is a cost angle and there is a revenue angle. At least us as an aggregator, we're betting strongly on the revenue angle. So that's why...
What does that mean? What does that mean, Decius?
It means that deep integration into the agency systems. I mean, if we really want an offer to be alive on a travel agency systems, then the third-party integration, the shopping, the servicing, the back office, mid-office integration, all of those things are essential because otherwise you're giving a naked API and then there's not going to be the win-win with the travel agencies in order to deliver the value that is expecting. So okay. that's our bet.
So that's your vision of the Amadeus Very proposition here.
Yes.
Jim, I mean, you've been the challenger here. You used to be the small challenger. What do you think? What chances do you think these new entrants have?
Well, again, that's way beyond me to answer that. But I do think that more the better, and I think there's some really cool stuff going on with some of the newer aggregators. I think they're taking a different approach to it rather than the approach that frankly, Fairlogics took back then. So yeah, I think there's some models. I agree with Decius. There's models out there that will survive, and just like any company, there's some that won't.
I just want to move to a couple of closing questions quickly. Unless, Temur, have you got one last thing you'd like to challenge the panelists with?
No, I think what is really important is what we said before, that when we look at the whole value chain, that we get here commitment, and I think I feel that also, that the commitment is there, that we do this together instead of what we have done maybe in the past. And I think that's very important. Still the challenge, and that is probably an indirect question, is how we can pull all airlines along, the smaller ones as well. And I think that this will be probably leading to some more, let's say, aggregated formats for those smaller ones. But the question goes to the tech providers, how they ensure that we do not just leave important airlines behind. Yep. How can we ensure that this is a collective approach?
Charlie, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I'm not going to mechanically answer that in terms of what are the steps we would take to do that. What I do want to say is this. It's absolutely critical for this industry to bring along all airlines. If there's going to be a transformation, right, it's incumbent on us to make that possible. So I think that's a general statement, but it's a very important one. We've collectively gotten to the point where we are here today. If we want to get to where we need to be in 5 years' time, it's not just a subset of airlines. It's got to be industry. So.
That's good news, and I reckon that whole disruption, you're talking about product disruption, but also commercial disruption will take place all the way across all these guys. So my kind of last question for you, I asked you just in the preparation, is what's important is just, concrete demonstration of concrete deliverables. You've all shared the roadmaps, which is good. What I'd just like to know is if in the next 90 days, because we talked about all these good intentions, collaboration, which is really, really good, what can you share with us that we will see in the next 90 days that will be concrete demonstration of this thing's moving forward? And maybe can I start with you, Jim, on that?
Sure, that's an easy one. One of our airlines doing 100% NDC through him.
90 days?
One of our airlines doing 100%. Well, 100% is a lot. But let's say significant amount through a GDS.
Okay. Will you be able to share that with us publicly in the next 90 days, or will it remain a secret until next year?
That's not for me to share.
Great.
But that really will show meaningful traction. And look, everybody's working to that goal. Whether it's 105 days or 90, but we're that close to having something meaningful.
Thank you, Jim. Charlie from Sabre.
Yeah. So yesterday in this room, we announced the launch of Retail Intelligence. So I don't know, that was technically post-dated from today, but can that include in the 90 days?
Okay.
So Retail Intelligence for us is really, it's a big step forward in providing our customers with new offer optimization capabilities. So the ability to dynamically price air through Air IQ, and then also to dynamically price ancillaries through Ancillary IQ, which are the kind of the
And that's
services.
live today, and you've got some airlines who are starting to.
Yeah, we've got some prototype stuff that's going on right now.
So that means in the next 90 days, you may have from that airline may start to see some of that 1% extra incremental revenue you talked about yesterday.
Yeah. So that's a big one, and underlying it, I think it's also a proof point to the importance for us of the Google relationship, the innovation framework that comes out of that, because that is a direct result of our partnership with Google.
Thanks, Charlie. Decius.
So I already mentioned the cloud base and the full servicing flow. So that is going to be available in the next 90 days. We're going to have 7 airlines that will be fully available worldwide on NDC. And as we discussed a lot about Amadeus being a GDS, it's a bit broader than that. No, we have many, many deliverables around the health issues and the safety, new compliance issues that we are delivering, order management, offer management, revenue accounting, revenue management, new customers that are announcing and being migrated. So I think plenty of activity.
Great, thank you very much. So we've got probably 30 seconds left. Tamur, as the chair of the Distribution Advisory Council, would you like just to close the panel with a few?
Well, yeah, I think what we heard today is when you would have had that session 3 years ago, it would have looked very different. We probably would have been in a cage and fighting. but that has changed completely, I think, over the course of the last 1 or 2 years, probably. And probably COVID has accelerated it. So I think COVID really had made clear for us we have to stand closer together. I think that is really, really important, that this is now also taken out of the crisis where suddenly you could, and you probably have seen it also in your companies, people work together you never thought they would work together. And that's something we have to preserve, I think, for the future. And I think IATA, with also the session that we had this week, we want to set certain some important milestones we want to reach. One is the NDC penetration, and that's corporate is very, very important. That's why I mentioned it. I think another topic which probably we haven't discussed today, but which become very important is payment. Yeah. So the payment process, and we face similar issues that we have faced on the NDC side. And the last one, I think, that's the third one, which we also discussed here, which is more a generational task. It's not something that will be done in 1 or 2 years. That's the whole offer and order process where we have to find common solutions. And what I heard today is really encouraging. Now we have to prove the point, and let's prove it first with the NDC penetration on the corporate side. That's for me the next proof point in the next 12 months. We need to see scaling there. The business wants to come back, hopefully, at that time. We see business coming back, but that's very important for the post-COVID world and what the customer actually needs.
Timur, thank you. On those notes, please, big thank you to my panelists. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Timur. Thank you.
Oh, of course. I put her in the side pocket.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Yannick, and the panelists for this great discussion.